to find a place to hook up to play games, to, talk about the hobby, whatever it is, right? But now it's starting to grow so much that, Ohio and, different parts of Wisconsin or whatever, I'm slowly starting to see more and more people creep in there. And that is where I am the most active by far. I will post something on my stores page and I will immediately drop it and share it into that page because I know that almost 900 people can see it. So.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we're going to transition a little bit from stores to people that probably don't go to stores very much, which is the orc community.
Oh, come
What?
on.
What?
I mean, listen. We come out to play when we want to, but not everybody likes to play us.
No, I just meant that the orcs themselves probably don't go to a lot of stores, but...
And also Matt.
And also
Matt. Come on.
Matt does not go to stores.
I'm one of those in and out guys that Ian described. I know what I want, I know what I'm looking for, and I execute. I'm one of those guys.
That's all right. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. So what's going on with orcs now in the meta? To get our competitive corner going.
Okay, so we had a powwow, me and local orc competitive players, John on our team and a couple other folks from the Ohio clubs and the Indiana clubs, and I compiled a current top 10 tier list, and then I'm going to go through some of the new flavors from Psychic Awakening that I've been able to test once in a game that took about 12 hours. So let's just go through a quick top 10. Auto include in any list right now is a Big Mac with a souped up shock attack gun. It's almost auto include. If you're feeling, saucy, you're going to put 3 of them. Two vanilla shock attack guns and 1 souped up shock attack gun. And you're going to want to run that as like Bad Moons, reroll 1s, have them shoot twice, Dreadwa, or, Death Skulls. Ludas, of course. Does everybody know what Ludas are? 48-inch range. They're good for tickling Primaris Space Marines. You're going to want to, again, run those as Bad Moons because rerolling 1s for orcs, that's cheese on top, and hit them with, never enough DACA stratagem, DACA popping on 5 and up is healthy when you're shooting 3 shots with 3 shots per 15 model. If you get lucky in Kentucky, Smash guns, everybody's favorite in ITC. My favorite way to run them is actually right now is with flash kits, to be honest. Because they'll activate the flash kit +1 to hit, which is pretty sweet. They do have a new specialist mob called Grot Mobs, which allows them to reroll. I think it's misses or hits. I haven't yet had an opportunity to explore it, but I look forward to doing that. Let's see. Of course, the common phrase "boys before toys." No one. It's kind of hard for unless you're dealing with a horde, like an anti-horde army, to rebuke 90 boys just being pushed down your throat.
Yeah, if you were not specialized in that, that's not going to go well.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not going to be a good time for anyone. I personally don't really run Slugga Boys too much. I like to run Shooter Boys because I'll get that the Assault 2 Shooter in a squad of 30, and then I can buff up their attacks with your other auto include. I don't think I've ever ran a list without a Weird Boy, and he of course has probably one of the best mobility psychic powers in the game, which is the jump. And then there's Gretchen, War Boss on a bike, depending on your mobility. Then my personal 2 favorites right now, and they actually show up in my list, is Tank Bustas and Mega Knobs.
Nice.
I don't run a lot of boys, just because it can be cumbersome to move them around. But I love my Mega Knobs. It's a beautiful model, T4, 3 wounds apiece, 2 up armor save. It's very hard to move. And then the the secret, the one that's making a large occurrence right now is Tank Bustas. And a lot of people, when you put them on the field, the fun way to do it is you put them in deep strike, and so that you have this force of anti-vehicle, and I use them for anti-Primaris because they all have strength 8, AP2. John's gonna correct me in the chat.
Yeah,
I know
minus 2 damage.
Yeah, so okay, and then for 10 points apiece, you can give them squig bombs.
Those are hilarious.
Ballistic skill 2,
Mm-hmm. And now, correct me if I'm wrong, but those still trigger to Daka, don't they?
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yep. So it's the only disadvantage that they have is they cannot be used on units that fly. So that's where a weakness can hit.
Just a hovers, grot.
Absolutely. Top three clans: Death Skulls, Evil Suns, Bad Moons. Bad Moons for your shooting gives you a little bit more opportunity, especially if you run a Bad Moons Dreadwa. You can have 2 big mechs with shock attack guns in there, and have each one shoot twice. Who can lose, right? And then you got your Evil Suns for your movement. I'm watching Dan's eyes right now. I can't tell if he's with us still. Are you there, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay. Evil Suns for movement. Plus, you can advance and still shoot your assault weapons at full ballistic skill. Not many people can do that. And then Death Skulls is just they're the lucky boys. Reroll a single hit, wound, and damage roll. That can be a game changer. I actually had a pretty recent experience where that was the kill switch for a Primaris gun line. He had one of those dreadnoughts. I'm not very good with Space Marines, but like a Redemptor or something like that, something special that was ripping me apart. And so he was 3 wounds away. Well, I wrote for the damage roll for the souped up Shaka. I rolled a 1d1, but he had 2 left. But hey, I still had that reroll off for that desk, the Death Skulls. Killed it, and it exploded, wiping out. Put a hole in his line. So it's top 3 clans: Death Skulls, Bad Moons, Evil Suns. Super Mario is here. Another one I like to run, I've tried it before. It doesn't always work, but I'm a big fan of Snake Bites. It gives all units in the army 6-up feel no pain, and then if you run your war boss as the Snake Bites Warlord trait, all grots within 6 to 12 inches auto pass morale. So you can
silly. Silly.
The most I've ever run is 120 grot models with the war boss in the middle. Now, if the war boss dies, you basically get tabled.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't have a way of removing him, that can be a pain. And nothing is more healthy than watching Gretchen take out Centurions. Let's see. We had some changes. They finally gave us the Big Mech with custom force field, but they changed the rules. It's cheaper now, but the new rule is the force field can only work for members of the clan that it's a part of, which is a huge change because now you can. Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but we'll have to work a way around it. They didn't change it for the Wazbomb or the Morkanaut, which is the other sources of custom force field, but yeah. So those are the main meta. The jump, Warpath, Tank Bustas, Mega Knobs, Gretchen, War Boss on a Warbike, especially if you're running 90 Storm Boys, which is something I enjoy doing. But I really want to talk about the new Psychic Awakening possibilities because they dumped a lot onto Orc players and gave us just opportunities for new things to run. So the one I'm most excited about, and I think it's the most Orky thing imaginable, is they gave us 3 stratagems for our planes. We used to have 1. It was okay. It wasn't great. They gave us one that's literally called Flying Headbutt, and for 1 command point, I can kamikaze my planes into people's lines, which is pretty exciting. And then anybody familiar with a napalm run? Raise your hands. Napalm run. Anybody? Okay. No, you know what napalm? Cool.
Mhm.
So we have a unit called a Burnabama. It's basically an arsonist in a plane filled with gasoline.
But arsonists get all the girls.
Right. So on top of cool stratagems, we also got specialist detachments. One of my favorite ones I'm very excited for is called Pyromaniacs. So it sounds great. It sounds like Animaniacs, Pyromaniacs. Okay. When a Burnabama does a bombing run on infantry, it adds +1 to the +1 to the mortal wound. So when it does a bombing run, you pick up to 10 models that it goes over, roll d6, and you add +1 on a 4. If they're pyromaniacs, you add another +1. So you're doing up to 10 mortal wounds on a 3-up. And then you pay a command, or you pay one command point, and then 6 inches away another force is instantly hit with this as well. So if my idea is if you're running 3, you can do a whole burn line, and then I have a list where I have 90 Storm Boys backed up by a war boss on a war bike that have the Flyboy specialist. So anyone with that's a Flyboy specialist is -1 to hit in shooting and -1 to hit in melee.
These are flyers?
Yes, those are flyers, but for the Flyboy specialist, it's any model with the word fly in it.
Right, but so the guys though they're dropping the bombs are just they're flyers, right? So like they're flying over the top.
Yeah, in the movement phase. It's not in the shooting phase.
Right. Do they have to fly over them to do the bombing though?
Yes.
Just like most of the other bombers.
Yeah.
So your big problem is going to be making sure that you have if somebody spaces you out on the other side of the board, you're not going to be able to land, right? So like you're going to have to figure out a way to bypass that. Because my thought process is the problem with orcs is that whenever I play orcs anyway, you're going to turtle at least to an extent because you don't want to get up in the face of the orcs right away. So if you're already turtling, you're not going to be able to move those planes behind my line and bomb me right away. So that's just something to consider.
Sure.
If you're running 3 of them, I'm knowing what you're doing, and I'm just going to set up so that you can't land that plane after going over me. Since I'm already going to be defensively positioned because screw going up face to face with orcs.
That is a good point. Burnabombas though have a failsafe, and they don't explode like normal planes. As soon as they're zeroed out on 0 wounds, they automatically crash and burn, and on a 4-up it explodes instead of like a 6, and then anything within 6 inches suffers 3 flat mortal wounds. So I actually want it to die in someone's lines.
Well, but my thought process is just ignore them. So what if you ignore the plane? So the big thing with those planes seems to be that you have to do the bombing to really get a lot of effect out of them, from what I'm understanding. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on what's their regular weapons or whatever. But if the big FU thing is bombing me, I'm just gonna ignore it, kill the rest of your crap as it's coming in. If I'm a gunline army, obviously if I'm a toe-to-toe army, I'm screwed anyway. But you're prepared for that to some extent as a toe-to-toe army going against orcs. But what are you doing to use those super effectively if you're not able to bomb with them and I'm not killing them?
Sure. So they can each one is armed with a pair of super shoes, a twin big shooter, and scorcher missiles, which is D6, and because they're pyromaniacs, they can re-roll the D6 option. Okay. So they basically a harassment platform that can do whittling away effects.
But they're also flyers, right? So they're not holding objectives.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And they're cheap.
Mm-hmm. Now, kind of a meta question.
Sure.
Or now that a lot of games, at least before this, we're moving towards chess clocks, which I actually think from a competitive standpoint is a great change. but
Mhm.
don't necessarily need to be implemented in everyone's game. I think it's just
Sure.
on the niche competitive gaming that it would work well. But in that realm, how is the orc list adapted to evolve?
Sure. So, for example, I have the ability to run hordes, and I do it with movement trays, but I don't really like playing that kind of playlist style because it can get repetitive and boring. My main playlist that I run right now it's called like a false pressure list, which is where I don't charge the enemy at all. I put 20 mega knobs on the field, some sort of long range unit, either Ludas or Smasher Guns in the back line, and then a squad of tank busters and teleporting deep strike. And I dominate the middle of the board, and I try to coax the enemy to come to me. And not a lot of players that I've come across, they're not used to that. They're used to orc players, flinging things at them and the jump and coming at them, not castling up, but slowly progressing through, terrain or ITC terrain usually has like a magic box. It's pretty hard to remove 20 mega knobs from a magic box because you got to go in there and dig them out like a zip.
So, Ian, that brought up a good point too. At your events, are you thinking about gauging slow play or including clocks?
Yeah. I've already included that for some of it anyway. So I usually will post ahead of time what kind of the expected time per round is, and if it becomes a problem, then I can come up and kind of say something or whatever. But I've never really had to before. There have been a couple situations where it's gone longer maybe than it should have on some of the tables or whatever. But yeah, with the store opening, the nice thing about it is that I will be able to acquire chess clocks. That if you're just there to play and you want to use one, you can rent it. Or if it's during an event, you can obviously just ask for it during the event and use it, which is going to be kind of sweet. But slow play has never really been a problem within our community, except for literally one or two times that I can count on. And usually I just say something and it's never been a problem again. I've never found slow play to be an issue of too many models to move. It's been an issue of too many models to dice for.
Yeah.
The thing is that it's a lot like this pandemic. It's something that's new, and it's unfortunately here to stay at the moment. So we just need to adapt to it as quickly and as best as we can. So I want to facilitate that as easily and as quickly as I can. So
now, do you feel like, from when I play competitively with a clock, do you feel, or when I play that way, I use it as another tool in my toolbox to try and win the game? Do you feel that that's fair and that's necessarily where GW wants to be? Or do you think that they should,
No,
sorry, do you think that, as a game, they want to be able to facilitate that shouldn't have been a variable in someone's win or loss? Because just for instance, at the Michigan GT, the last game, the only reason I won that was because I was on a clock. My opponent clocked out, and I had 40 minutes left.
Okay. So what was your opponent playing?
White Scars.
Okay. And did you know the person?
No, I did not know him going to the table, but we were okay friends or acquaintances afterward. He was a good guy.
That's not my point. I'm sorry. So, to my point, though, is that sounds like a fault on the opponent and not you. And what I mean by that is for instance, if you and I were going to play a game and we were going to try and make it a clean-cut competitive game as best we can, you'll never clock me out. I play Emperor's Children. I'm so fast because I know that army inside out, backwards, upside down, and on Tuesdays. I can play that army blindfolded because I have played it so many times. But for a lot of players, they chase the meta. We know this. This is a thing that happens. And if someone's like, oh, I want to play Space Marines to beat Space Marines, what's my best option? Oh, White Scars or Salamanders. All right, well, I like White Scars better. They pick up a White Scars army and they start playing that a month before the event. Then they're going to run into situations where they're like, oh, I'm not really sure what to do in this situation or how to handle it. And that's what eats the clock for them, usually speaking. In my personal experience from what I've seen.
No, it was my experience in that game as well. Especially, he brought a lot of like Thunderfire Cannon and a lot of things that required a lot of dice rolling.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, if you know your stuff, like I have several armies that are a ton of dice, but if you know your crap, it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You'll know exactly how many dice you need to have set aside. If the guy, I forget his name, that plays in all the big tournaments and stuff like that has literal solo cups full of dice, and and it's written on there. This is 20, this is 30, this is 40. So when you know how many dice you need, if you know you need that to keep that timer up, you'll bring that because you're prepared with your army. And I know my army extremely well. You know your army extremely well. Me and you playing each other aren't going to have a dice rolling issue. Maybe we run into rules issues or whatever. Or whatnot, but that's when you really look at like slow play. And if you come into a tournament, you should, or a real big tournament. Like I understand small store tournaments and things like that you might be like, hey, I'm playing a new army, I don't know what I'm doing, because it's only 20, 30 guys or whatever. That's no big deal to me. It's when you walk into a 100, 200 person tournament and you got a guy who's sitting there like, all right, I'm gonna roll this one dice. Oh, and I gotta roll this one dice, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you should know your crap by the time you get to that point, and that's I think where your frustration is.
Right. And to kind of bounce off that too. So that is kind of that is a good thing and a bad thing, obviously. So it's a bad thing because you don't want to play against that. You expect your opponent to be as friendly and as facilitating as you are when you come to the event, which includes knowing your army as best as possible so you can play the game as fast as possible. It's a good thing though when you see that, because that tends to mean that it's either A, a new player to the hobby, or B, a converted player from another hobby. So we're getting more people into it so we can take a 30-person event and turn it into a 70-person event. I know, because that's literally what happened with me in the Golden Rhino. But back to the original question about the chess clock, I think what's really important about that is you ask the question from an offensive defensive situation, and I think that's the wrong way to look at it. A chess clock is very, very simple. It is cut and dry. It makes the game even for both players, and that is it. It is up to you to decide how you use that time. So I don't think you used it as a weapon to win. I think that's a really, really bad way to think about it, in fact, because I think that can give the concept that is a tool that you can win with, which means people will go look for that. And I don't think that's a good way to think about it. I think it's more of like lifting weights. It's a way for you to train yourself to understand what you need to do and how to react quickly so that this game's core mechanics become like breathing for us, and everything else you can learn to think about on the fly, and you have time to do that. Okay. And yes, get yourself some cheat aids, get some cups, get some dice pre-counted.
And that also, pre-counting dice, what do you feel about, Ian, from a store owner perspective, of the dice app?
So if you can get it, because I'm not sure if it's still available, the original Games Workshop dice app, 100% behind it. I actually got to talk with some of the people that helped design that. It's awesome. That is a great app. I use it every once in a while too. But here's the thing. It's a lot like cocktail shrimp. I think it should be used only in moderation. The whole point of this hobby in this game is so that we can build and paint models and roll freaking dice, right? In a small concept, it is gambling. It is fun. We get to roll dice and have mechanics. But at the same time, a dice app like that especially is a way to speed things up. If I'm looking at doing 2 units of 20 Noise Marines that are double tapping one of them, like that's a lot of dice real fast. So that's where I can kind of be polite and be like, hey, hang on 1 second, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, roll that once, right? I did it that fast. But at the same time, I also have like a kangaroo pouch that I have with me that has 60 dice in it at all times. So I just scoop and roll. I can roll 60 dice in under 60 seconds. Like, so.
And this kind of comes out a little bit of a question. Are you a pull the successes or a pull the failures kind of guy?
No. Be polite.